Congress of Vienna in 1815, monarchs were restored to Italy, leaving Metternich to say, "Italy is only a geographical expression." The restored monarchs were really reactionary. In Piedmont, the nobles were given back their lands, and they were encouraged not to use the roads because they were put in by French people, and the French people are wrong. The 1820s saw the emergence of the Carbonari, a secret society made up of largely well-educated middle-class members. They were particularly active in Naples, where they were viciously suppressed. However, the Carbonari did suffer from having not very well-defined aims. The Carbonari played a huge part in the 1820 revolutions beginning in Naples, where restored King Ferdinand had increased church power and censorship, which led to revolution. Revolution then spread to Sicily, only they weren't interested in unification, but for separation from Naples. Revolution then spread to Piedmont, where free speech and equality before the law had been totally abandoned. Metternich didn't agree with revolutions, so when King Ferdinand asked him to help crush the uprising in Naples, he was only too happy to oblige, sending in the Austrian army to suppress the uprising. Following this, the revolution in Sicily was also soon crushed. After Victor Emmanuel I abdicated after the revolutions in Piedmont, the people turned to Charles Albert to lead them. Problem being, Charles Albert wasn't actually the rightful heir to the throne, Charles Felix was. Then Charles Felix appealed to Metternich to help crush the uprising. Once again, he was only too happy to oblige, sending in the Austrian army to crush the revolution. In 1831, there was a successful revolution in Medina, which managed to set up a provisional government. This inspired students in the neighbouring Parma to have their own revolutions and to also organise a provisional government. Contact was quickly established between the two. However, the leader of Medina, Duke Francis, quickly returned at the head of an Austrian army who defeated the revolutionaries. A similar thing happened in the Papal States, where the government of the Italian provinces was briefly formed in Bologna, before once again that was crushed by Metternich's troops.
Nope. Boop, 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 boop. Okay.
Now it's time to introduce Giuseppe Mazzini. Mazzini's parents wanted him to be a poet, but after seeing penniless revolutionaries in Genoa, he dressed in black, mourning a failed revolution for the rest of his life. He joined the Carbonari, but was betrayed by them, and went to prison. And while he was in prison for 3 months, he thought up Young Italy, his political party. And if you wanted to join Young Italy, you had to be prepared to dedicate yourself, wholly and forever, to the endeavour to make Italy one free, independent Republican nation. Italy had a password. What time is it?
Time you get a watch. No.
What time is it?
Time your face. No.
What time is it?
Time for struggle. Yes. Yes, my sons.
There were further revolutions in 1848. There was general discontent all through Italy. Harvest had failed, and 90% of people in Italy worked on the land, so that was a real problem, and people just could not afford to feed their families. Specifically in Sicily, Ferdinand had granted reforms and given them a viceroy, but this didn't last, and there was that outbreak of cholera. So notices were posted in the capital city planning to revolt, and revolt they did, which then spread to Naples, who asked for a constitution. But then there was a real division in the aims of the revolutionary forces, because Naples then forcefully retook Sicily in 1848 and they were reunified with Naples, which was sad for them. Also in 1848, Metternich resigned. There was a tobacco boycott in Milan to get at Austria, which is how that revolution started. General Radetzky withdrew his Austrian troops because there were revolutions going on in Austria which needed his attention more. A provisional government got set up which asked Piedmont for help. Then Charles Albert declared war on Austria, to the surprise of many. And there was also a revolution in Venetia which joined in on this. But then, unfortunately, Austria won at Custoza, Piedmont lost, and Venetia was on its own. In the Papal States, there was rioting after the Papal States Chief Minister was killed and the Pope fled. A constituent, which included Garibaldi, established the Roman Republic, which was led by a triumvirate, the head of which was Mazzini. They were in power for 100 days, in which they abolished the death penalty and the Inquisition, taxation was reformed to aid the poor, and the clerical monopoly on education was ended, which was all really good, really modern things. But then, unfortunately, 20,000 men from France took it down, and that was that. The Venetian Republic, which at this point was still holding out, was hit by cholera and hunger, and they too surrendered. Charles Albert did briefly try to fight Austria again, but he was totally defeated. And that was that.
Cavour was a non-revolutionary liberal politician, and before he was Prime Minister of Piedmont, he was a Minister of Agriculture, Commerce and the Navy. He made free trade treaties and he made more railways, so Piedmont was more economically powerful. Fast forward to the Crimean War, and Piedmont and France were fighting alongside each other as allies. In the 1856 Peace Conference, Napoleon and Cavour became best friends and were connected through a certain someone called Countess Castiglione. Down the line, Napoleon and Cavour met at Plombières, a popular resort for posh people and whatnot. Napoleon promised 200,000 men in the fight against Austria, and Piedmont was going to provide 100,000. However, Napoleon wanted to have Nice and Savoy in return. Secret treaty. Garibaldi basically just did his own thing. He went a bit mental and took Rome, much to Cavour's distaste, actually.
What are you doing?
And he supported Victor Emmanuel, in fact giving Victor Emmanuel Naples and Sicily in 1860. And then after that he kind of retired a bit because he got defeated a lot.
Ooh.
At the beginning, the Pope actually looked quite promising. He appeared to be liberal, releasing the nationalist prisoners from jail and also allowing free press. However, he was a bit of a disappointment. There was a complete change of policy, suddenly condemned Italian nationalists, rejected the Risorgimento, and refused to allow papal troops to help drive out the Austrians. In fact, he had to escape in disguise from Rome as the revolution began. He of course returned to Rome, abolished all early reforms, and excommunicated all who tried to reduce temporal power of papacy, and that would be the National Liberals, of course. Overall, the Pope didn't help unification at all, and in fact dissuaded a lot of Catholics from joining in.
You have been watching the Pope, miscellaneous rebels, Countess Castiglione, Mazzini, Victor Emmanuel, Garibaldi, Cavour, the Austrian army, Napoleon, the Carbonari, and Metternich.